This Sidecar Sequence is a companion study designed to go alongside my main cover video for Nail to the Tracks by Backtrack. I'm going to start implementing these more often as a way to expand on the songs I cover. Sometimes that means zooming in on a specific technique challenge inside one of the riffs. Other times it might mean exploring a musical concept or an example part written in the style of the track to highlight something interesting happening within the song. Think of these as focused mini-studies that take one idea from the song and build a dedicated exercise around it. Something that you can practice along the actual track to develop the skill faster and more intentionally. For this Sidecar sequence, we're tackling the main picking and string crossing challenge that shows up right in the primary riff. There's a quick shift from two fast 16th notes on the low 6th string straight up to a 5th string power chord hit. That little burst is deceptively tricky to nail consistently. And while practicing the actual riff is obviously important, it's often worth isolating the problem and drilling it in its own musical context. One of the best ways to break through a technique barrier like this is to build a slightly exaggerated version of the problem into a new example or etude. That way you're practicing something harder than the real thing, and when you go back to the song, it feels easier and more controlled. In the example I've created, we're basically hitting that treble spot constantly. You're getting a ton of repetitions, but still in a musical setting that sits adjacent to the actual riff. I've also increased the difficulty a bit. Instead of just playing two 16th notes on the 6th string, and then galloping on the 5th string like the real track does, this exercise has you bouncing back and forth between the 6th and 5th strings repeatedly. That forces your picking hand to stay locked in and your muting to stay clean. Let's take a look at the example so you can see what I mean. If you want to practice this with extra resources, the full guitar profile, backing tracks, and drum loops for this sequence are all available for download at shredlab.com. Now this is meant to be an exercise first and foremost, but I still try to keep some level of musicality so it's actually fun to play and doesn't feel like a dry technical drill. Ideally, you can loop this along with the backing track and enjoy the process while still getting the reps in. The changing drum patterns underneath will also give you additional training towards playing in the pocket as you repeat the riff over different grooves and time feels. Now that we've addressed the core issue of the song and built an exercise to reinforce it, I want to dive deeper into how I personally approach riffs like this and how I navigate the string crossing challenge. In this situation, I rely heavily on fretting hand muting. I let my index finger hang over the 5th string shape just enough so that the very tip of the finger lightly touches the 6th string. That contact mutes the 6th string completely. Why do I do this? Because it lets me pick through the 6th string when I'm hitting the 5th string chord. So after those two 16th notes on the low string, I don't have to worry about landing perfectly inside of the strings or tiptoeing around the 6th string. I can just aggressively pick straight through it, knowing it won't ring out. If your muting isn't dialed in yet, this can feel awkward at first, but once it clicks, you'll immediately feel the benefit, especially in an aggressive metal context. There's something about being able to really hammer the strings instead of feeling trapped on the outside of the low string after this burst. Without this muting approach, you end up having to sneak back over the 6th string to hit the 5th string cleanly, and that usually results in a weaker attack. Now to be clear, in a lead context such as a solo, I wouldn't pick through a muted string like this. But for heavy rhythm playing, I prefer the sound and feel of this approach. Yes, the muted 6th string will make a tiny bit of noise, but in the mix, the noise to sound ratio is so small that it doesn't stand out. So see this method of playing as a stylistic choice to maintain impact with your rhythm playing and open up your picking hand, not a shortcut or a hack. It's also worth mentioning that specifically fretting 5th string power chords with my index and pinky allows me to play these types of riffs smoothly. If you're only accustomed to using your index and ring finger every time, a riff like this can sound extremely disjointed and choppy as you transition between 6th string and 5th string chords. Utilizing your pinky for the 5th string chords will give you much better economy of motion. Between the exercise itself and this muting strategy, you should have everything you need to tackle the main challenge and nail to the tracks with a lot more confidence and consistency. I encourage you to spend some time drilling this sequence and then go back to playing through the actual track to gauge your progress. Beyond this song, take these muting principles and apply them to other riffs you're currently working on to see just how useful this approach can be for your playing.